Hi, I'm Travis Roundy, and I'll be presenting case 3.4, Franklin Industries. So the first question is, what are the main arguments and rationalizations that Natalie has to do in order to stick to her values and report the fraud that's been happening? The first rationalization I think she has to hurdle is the fact that her career is at stake. She's already received punishment and she's already been demoted, and so another infraction against company or whatever they foresee as that infraction, I think could end up costing her her job. The other rationalization is that she has to ignore the advice from an older and more experienced friend that has told her to keep silent. She has to rationalize that he was not giving her the right advice, and that she should actually report the fraud. The other rationalization that she's going to have to hurdle is that she could think to herself that it's not really her problem; it's a internal controls problem, or someone else's job to report the fraud, and that she shouldn't be liable for any punishment if she was going to report that. And so I think she has to convince herself that it's the right thing to do. Well, she knows it's the right thing to do, but convince herself that these other rationalizations aren't going to affect her resolve to report the fraud. So the people who are stakeholders in this situation are: one, Natalie. Her job is at stake. Just by being a whistleblower, she'll face a lot of heat from employees and management, and she could lose her job. Some of the other stakeholders are her good friend Roger, who gave her the advice to stay quiet, as well as all the other company employees. They risk the company failing or losing their jobs because of any negative consequence of the whistleblowing. And then it's not only the employees that are affected, but their families as well. Denny King, who is doing the fraud, will likely see his career over, maybe a jail time, a hefty fine from the SEC. All those, he's a major stakeholder because he's the one that's causing the fraud. And then the board of directors are stakeholders in the situation. They could be removed from the board of the directors. They could see their company fail, or they face any fines or additional jail time or punishment. So the best argument that I have for those who don't agree with Natalie's decision to report the fraud is that if you allow fraud to continue in the company, it's only going to get worse. You're going to see bigger fraud, more instances of fraud, and so you can't let that behavior go onward. You got to punish it hard, and so that your company has a strong value of ethics, and that it won't encourage other employees, other managers, other top management to commit fraud. And I think this argument needs to be brought forward to the board of directors. I think Natalie should approach the board of directors, and she should let them know that the fraud has been happening and that they should take a strong stance against it, because taking a strong stance against the fraud is going to encourage other people to not commit fraud and be more conservative in their estimates and in their doings. And I think that the timing of this conversation is ASAP for Natalie. I think the sooner that she gets to the board of directors and let them know what's going on, the better that they can manage the situation and try to get the best result for the company. So the last question is whether the Dodd-Frank Act, whether Natalie, if she stayed silent, would have enough status in order to be a whistleblower under that act. And so there's a couple steps that Natalie would have to meet in order to be considered for the whistleblower compensation. One is that she has to be the first one to report it, and she needs to alert an outside entity, the SEC, that the fraud has been happening. And like I said before, she's got to be the first one to do that. So she can't. It's got to be original information, something that SEC hasn't had before, and so she has to be the first one. And then the third step is that she can't be involved with covering it up or part of the fraud. And I think that if she stayed silent on the issue at this point, I think the SEC would determine that she wasn't willing to go all the way to be a whistleblower, and I don't think she would qualify for the compensation. I think the SEC would see her as her silence as an attempt at covering up and allowing the company to continue that fraud. So I think the best scenario for Natalie at this point is to go to the board of directors, alert them of the fraud, and call the SEC and let them know of the situation. And I think doing both of those things would allow her to become a whistleblower in the sense that she can be compensated through the Dodd-Frank Act. And she's going to possibly lose her job, face a lot of heat from employees, management, for that decision to blow the whistle. But I think it's the right decision for her, and if she really wants to stick to her values, that's the best way to do it.